If you want to create a discussion thread for your course, for your online courses within Blackboard, there are a couple of ways you can do it. There's a way that I do it, and there's a way that other people do it. Either way, if it works for you, find the way that works for you best. The more you do it within Blackboard, the more ideas you'll get, and you'll see what works for you and what doesn't. First thing I would do, now over here on the left, let me go up. There is a discussion tab that I have closed at the moment. But to start off, I would go down to Course Tools, and you can actually create these anywhere, but I think this is the easiest way to do it. You can create a discussion under any tab, but here's Discussion Board. Here's the class that will come up, which is the class that I'm in. I'm in one of my master courses, and right here at the top it says Create Forum. Now what I do, I've done it two different ways. I've done what I call a Unit 1 discussion, if you want to be very general with that. And then down here in the description, you would put the question you want to ask for that particular section. Or you could put the question here in your title and then either put some rules or put how exactly you want them to answer it here. Now, a lot of people do this. These are sample ground rules, and I have them in a Word document. I just highlighted them. I'm going to do a Control-C, Control-Copy, and if you go back over here, you can do a Control-V and put it in that way. Now, I have found sometimes if you were going to do a question, you might ask the question at the top. How do you feel about the coronavirus? Boy, I bet you can get a wide variety of answers there. Now, try if you can, use Arial or Verdana. Those are more accessible fonts. They're easy to read. I do try to make them as big as I can, but you can separate things. There are lines here in Blackboard like that, for instance. And then if you want to, with each discussion, you can put your rules underneath. I have done it before where the rules were on top and students didn't scroll all the way down to see the question, but they can see it this way. Here you can set when is it going to open and then when it's going to close. These are availability dates. This is not a due date. If you just want it to open when you create it, you want to create a due date, you can do it that way. Or you can set these up to open and close at certain times during the semester. It's kind of up to you. I do standard view. You can do an option of no grading in the forum, great discussion forum. It allows them to create their threads. You put how many points you want, and then Blackboard kind of assigns the rest of this. Here's where you can add a rubric. So you can actually create a rubric and then go down and select the rubric for that particular discussion. Here's a due date. I usually do with all of my stuff. I do midnight. I'm going to put May 3rd here. So that's a due date. And like I was saying, up here, this is availability. You can actually set for this thing to display after the due date if you wanted to. See, I just set that for 2 days after the due date. And then you can assess late points if a student doesn't get to it in time. That way you can, it gives you some flexibility if they were to miss a due date. Or you can set that up to be exactly the due date. I'm just saying if you go past that time, it gives them a couple of days, and then you can just say, look, if you turn it in late, I'm going to take so many points off. All right, so I set that up. That's pretty easy. You're then going to hit the bottom create in the bottom corner, and now we've created a discussion forum. So I called it Unit 1 discussion. Here is the description. Another way that works really well is if you put the question here and then maybe put how you want them to answer the question in the description. Now I need to do this. I'm just going to make it open already. There we go, so we can see it. All right, now we've created it. Now, if you leave this discussion tab open, it will take them immediately to this point. That's one way you can do it. And then you can just have all of your discussions in one location if that's what you want. What I do, and this is everybody's different, I like to put the content where if I want them to do a discussion during week 9, let me pick one that actually has something underneath it. There we go. So here's tab number 6. Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff on here. Here's a YouTube video. Now this is a lesson for them to do, and then down here is their quiz. And what I was going to say, if you wanted to do this with your discussion, here's my late assignment policy. I just had an item and I have it above everything they have to do. That way they have to read this first before they do the quiz. But if you want to put a question in with the content that you want them to be covering, you would go up here to Tools, you click on Discussion Board, and then there's our discussion. Now, here's what you can do. You can create a link and just click that button, and it will take them to the discussion board, if you want to do it that way, where all your discussions would be. What I like to do, just a preference, a little ADD in my life, I select the discussion that I want, and that way this discussion is under a certain tab with the content that I want them to be looking at. Now you do have to then fill in this again, and once you've done Control C, if you want to do it again, it also gives you the opportunity to set when you want it to close. After this, blah, blah, blah. But when you go to the bottom, and what happens when you create something in Blackboard, it's going to put it to the bottom of the tab. So there it is. There's our discussion, and I'm going to move it up. I got a lot of stuff here. This is my old shell. My newer ones are a little less distracting. But what I was going to say, here we have the late assignment policy. If you wanted to put your discussion and always have the ground rules, you can do it like this. I didn't put in the question on that one, just copied in the ground rules, but you can create an item like that, like up here. You can go under item, and then you can just name this discussion forum rules and put them that way. And what you can do with these items is you can copy these to any tab within your class. And so if you wanted to always, like I have there, so here's the rules for every time you have them do a discussion. If you don't want that to be part of the question, because sometimes that can be distracting. But here you click on it and see here's where they would then create their threads. How do you feel about the coronavirus? Here we go. Cool dude, whatever that's going to be. But now here's my thread. They can click on it and they can see how I opined on that particular subject. That's if you want to put it in a specific location. If not, all the discussions you create will be all under the discussion tab. So if you had 10 discussions during your class, all 10 are going to be here. And then I just showed you a way, if you wanted to put it in a very specific location, you can do it that way. Where did I do that? Number 6. Yeah, and these are too busy. I've cleaned up my classes. This is too busy for me even. But there's the late assignment policy. I just put that above anything they turn in. But here's the discussion rules. And see, you could actually then, and I had just done this just to show you had to fill them in again. But you can take this out and you could put, how do you feel about the coronavirus? There we go. So it's probably, all right, so there are the rules, and then there's the discussion. How do you feel about the coronavirus? See, when you click on it, it'll have it there, and then they can create their threads. It just depends on how you want it done. I like to put it under where their content is. And then probably the best way, if you are going to put it within content, instead of, I've called them unit before, but like I was saying, you can put the question in the title, and then underneath that, you can put how you want them to explain or what do you want them to discuss very specifically. And of course, it's always good to have a rubric so they'll know exactly what them. But see, there's the question: how do you feel about it? And then here's where they can create their threads, and then you can grade them at that point. All right, so that's a couple of easy ways you can create a discussion within your online class.